time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Hello, and welcome back to another round of Brandy. If you know Scott and I, we are big movie people.
We're movie buffs.
We like all kinds of movies. We're not picky. We'll try different things.
Well,
So
we don't watch. I mean,
we don't watch trash.
Kind of picky.
No,
I
we
mean,
don't watch
we have good
trash.
taste in movies.
we give out great recommendations on movies. So if
We
you-
do. We should actually just start a new podcast where we're just talking about films, like our, But I know there's tons of those out there. But something that dropped brand wise recently that we're kicking off the episode by just again brand news. What's things on the horizon? So the film company A24, which I love their movies. I mean,
yeah,
they're known for like
Excellent.
very visceral, like horror movies, but just very. Not just horror, but they branched out and done. And if you look at their lineup, if you Google A24 films, you'll look at their film lineup, which is pretty extensive. But always, anytime I see an A24 movie's coming out, I go, "Oh, that's when I definitely have to see it in the theater." And they came out with something new, right?
Well, and it's been interesting seeing them grow because I think their initial positioning was strictly indie films. They were doing things that were like under the radar, and they just have blown up because they're so artistic and so over the top. And then I recently got an ad because they know I like A24, and they do some great merchandise. They do cool little books and things for each movie and whatnot. But they released a membership, and at first I was like, huh. And so I
film
clicked on
company
it.
doing a membership.
Right, and it's kind of like it's not something you expect. It's a little off the beaten path, and looking into it, the website was slick.
The website was super sexy. I
Really
mean, it
well
was
done.
slick looking. It just they clearly hired a good UI team to build out this web page to kind of push this membership thing.
Yeah, and right away they kind of show the different aspects of the membership, where it's like I think there's like a token system. There's you get access to the merch and the things that they sell per the movies, and I think you get a little discount or something.
Yeah, they
And
even said
then
their
tickets.
brand messaging, your ticket to everything A24, and it's $99 a year, which basically is $9.99 a month. But you get one free ticket to every. You get one ticket to every A4 movie that comes out for that year. Huh. They have monthly credits, and you can use these credits towards merch or shopping. They give you a birthday gift. They send some free gift on that to subscribers on their birthday, and you get a 10% off when you shop just for being a member. So if you go on their website to buy some of their film-related merch as a member, you already get it. They also have a zine, a quarterly zine that they're going to be putting out and sending out. And it just looks like there's exclusive merch that's only available to members. So it's kind of a very interesting model. I don't know. I mean, even big ones like Disney or Universal or 20th Century, all of those. Why 20th Century? They're not owned by Disney. So, but I mean, like all these other big ones, Warner Brothers and stuff. Movie theater, they're starting to have more streaming service, but not a membership based thing.
Right, but
I thought was-
A24 is like
I've always pushed the envelope.
Oh no, I could see A24 like opening a hotel or something where it's like the theme of it and the vibe would be so
horror
on
themed
point.
hotel.
Like
Could
you
imagine
could see him doing something like that where it's like a
Could
cool
you imagine?
Airbnb.
That would be great. That would be super popular.
But it's like that's where I'm like A24 is different because it is a lot of horror and psychological thrillers, things like that. So the vibe of it is it's a certain audience. And
Yeah.
so even the gifts they send out and things, it's probably under that theme that A24 is set up. So it makes sense that even on the website, like the little token, they have like this cool old, like, I think it might be from one of the movies, but it's like this old coin that like flips up. It's not like a modern looking token or a computery. It's just like, it looks so cool.
It's a brand that clearly knows their audience.
Yeah,
and they've
100%.
geared this membership thing and what the membership's offering to their audience. That's what we're bringing up. Like that's what we're always preaching
cool.
is that brands need to find ways to be distinct and make a mark and try something different. And it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm kind of curious to see how the herd mentality that's going to follow with how many other film companies go, oh, well, we could do that too, and they're just going to follow along and follow the lead that A24 has set up with this movie.
Yeah.
So
And it's interesting because they could actually then branch out and do their own streaming service at some point. If they
Yeah.
get enough membership, then it's like, oh, now you have an app that's all A24 stuff.
Yeah.
So they could set themselves up for a pretty awesome deal. But this kind of does bridge neatly into what we're talking about today because A24, what they sell is films, right? It's intangible. Yes, they have merchandise and stuff that supports it, but for the most part, they are an intellectual property. It is all invisible until you watch it on the screen is what they're selling. They're selling stories. And so you watch the trailer, you get a little taste of it and go, wow, that looks interesting, right? Or not. And then from there, you're trusting, and that's what A24 has done so well, is that you trust the brand so much of going, man, whenever I see A24 like come up before a trailer, I'm like, okay, this is going to be, I'm expecting greatness. And so the promise is there. And this really relates a lot to service businesses where, in America, service businesses are 80% of the businesses and the workforce, really. Like service businesses make up 80% of the workforce. So it's a huge part of America and the world. So these businesses, you're selling to, B2C side of things on consumer side and the B2B side. So it's like, how does brand help service businesses? How does it help them stand out? How should a service business even go about brand or branding?
Yeah.
What does that even mean when you are selling the invisible?
Yeah, and it's hard because, a lot of times it's easy to, we're in that same vein as a service studio where our intellectual is creativity, much like you would go to hire a architect, right? Yeah, most architects don't just sell, okay, well, you've got 4 options for your home. Which you want? Package B, this one, or they customize it to the needs of every single client, and it's slightly different. And that's why, if you're shopping, if you decide you're going to build a custom home and you're shopping for an architect, you're looking at things they've done in the past. And you may lean on that going, I really like the approach for this open space for this one home in your portfolio, right? But so I'm kind of wanting that, but they're unique things, much like an interior designer. Yeah. Someone that usually straddles the fence between both B2B and B2C.
Right. Yeah. And we've worked with several interior designers, and so we've gotten really familiar with their world, how these relationships work. And so even today, being able to use them as an example and going, okay, they are strictly, intangible in what they sell. It's a service. And we always try to get the client away from selling hours. You're not selling a product. You're not selling hours. It's like, what is an interior designer selling? Okay, designs, but that design is based off of what? The initial kind of situation they're in and how they're going to solve that for them. And so even that, it's like that's the client-facing side of the business, but interior designers also have to work the B2B side of it, which is more of the relationships with other vendors and contractors, architects. And so they have to sell on these 2 fronts because it's all relationship. It's all relational of how they're being perceived.
When we're talking about service business, and the key to really unlocking your brand is relationships. And just like we always talk how, again, business is transactional and branding is relational. And that goes not only for your consumer, but the relationship you have as a service business, your brand has with other service businesses.
Right. And the bad part that I've seen this, like being in business for so long and going to mixers and going to all these things where you get people like, oh, your net worth is your network and things like this, where you get people who are just going out there shaking hands and passing out business cards. And sure, they're creating relationships. They're doing, they're networking, right? Which to me is like such an awful term, but it's good and all, but the relationship is only as good as it is relative to the other connection. Yeah. So it's relationships, but it's relational. So how they relate to you and how relative you are to them. Goes into, I'm about to write about this, but about survival of the fittest. And that means whoever's the best fit. And that comes down to relativity of going, okay, you are, let's say an interior designer, how relative or relevant are you to that architect? Do you guys even jive? You can meet and have that quote relationship, but that relationship is only worth something if you're actually relevant and you actually are relative to what they need and what they actually desire for their interior designer partner. Yeah. So it's like looking at it through that lens matters just as much, because brand gives that shape and that form to the invisible, to the something that can't be, it's not a product, can't be held. So it's like the intangible is able to take shape based off of the brand, and the brand's able to help through positioning and visually be able to start molding that. So then someone goes, oh yeah, that does relate to me in this way. I do want that relationship. I can use them and they can use me and we can work together.
Exactly. Now I'm curious, what about going back to something you said that I want to follow back on? Why do you hate the word networking? Why is that? Is it outdated? Does it imply something that you feel is counterproductive to a brand, or as far as terminology or what that means? Or are you just like, I'm tired of that, it's an overused term?
I think the mindset, it's quantity over quality. Is that I would rather
bigger network means results,
more opportunities. And it's like, sure, you can increase your likelihood of connections by just blasting, right? And going, okay, the whole world knows about me. I can go drop, money from an airplane, and it's like, okay, everyone that's networking to some degree and might have my phone number on it, but it's like, it's not, the quality of those relationships aren't there. So in a world where we have the internet, we have mass communication, the opposite is more valuable because you're able to dive deeper into the quality. And this goes into even like businesses that need to dive deeper into niches and dive deeper into the value they give. And that's what, again, if you are a service provider, it's like your services are going to be put into kind of the vendor world unless you start positioning yourself and being, more distinct and being more relevant to what someone's looking for, whether that's on the, the B2B side or the B2C side with clients. It's like, you're only as valuable as you are relevant to what they need. And you need to be specific about that. You can't just be a general interior designer.
Yeah. And I think too, it goes into really the key to all of this. And I think the point you were making with networking is like the idea that you go to a mixer and you're just like, you're handing out business cards like they're napkins. Every single person go, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm an accountant, or I'm a, whatever. And you're handing off. And brand, as we've talked about, because the crux of brand is relational. And we've talked about this in other episodes, and we talk about this in our book, Brandy, is that it's about trust. And trust is not something automatically given. Trust has to be earned. And so that's why we preach from mountaintops the importance of, word of mouth referrals can be the strongest component. You have someone that goes to a restaurant and they have a phenomenal time with the food, the service, everything. They feel like, and regardless of the pricing, because I don't think, cheap pricing is necessarily the key to that. It's like if the price matches whatever the value they had, or if the value exceeds the price, right? Yeah. What are they going to do? I have it all the time where a new restaurant pops up and people are talking about, ooh, is it any good? Well, nah, and what is word on the street? And there's so much value. Unfortunately for you, if you have a business, that's a reality you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah. And it's kind of like we were talking earlier about movie recommendations. And like I've received plenty of recommendations for movies or shows, and based off of who it's coming from, I'll be like, I won't watch that. Like I can tell just by the person what they appreciate and what they like. I'm like, okay, that's not relevant to me. That's not a good fit for me. So I am going to pass on that. There's no value in that, and I'm going to move on. And it's the same thing of if Scott told me about a good restaurant or a movie, I'll be like, okay, Scott gets me. I like the other things that Scott likes, right? And I trust his recommendation. And it's really the same thing of like that, being relevant to it, where someone can make that fit and go, no, this is a good fit for me and what I'm looking for. And then the value keeps increasing. And that's really that perceived value. And so I think the first mistake is going, okay, you have a network, you have not healthy relationships, you're not diving deep into actually being relevant in these relationships. And again, it's like that's on the client side, but also on the B2B side, where you're actually shaking hands and meeting other business owners and doing that. And it's like those things are important because those relationships are going to help, like Scott was saying, even with those referrals and those recommendations and people being able to trust you. It's like that's how you're going to get that, is by building those relationships. And then my second side of this is that a brand doesn't mean just like looking beautiful. Like, okay, you can have a great logo, you can have all these wonderful things to your interior design studio, it can look nice, but that doesn't necessarily mean brand unless you're actually positioned. You're just going to look like a really nice looking interior design studio. You're not actually calling out like, this is who we are and this is who we're for. Right. And that's kind of the main, like really the main portion is like going, no, you need to be positioned in the market. Only by then can you be distinctive and then be of actual value to someone, because they understand that and they go, okay, this either fits what I'm looking for or it doesn't. And they're going to then, kind of lean into that. Yeah. And I think that's what I see a lot with service businesses, where they just kind of they'll go along with whatever anyone else is doing, and they almost let the category kind of define who they are, what they sell. Because again, you're selling the intangible, so it's like that's kind of all you have to go off of. Yeah. And then from there, they're kind of just fingers crossed. Oh, I hope they choose us, and that's why you get so many like vendors in the world of service.
I think another market that just popped in my head as you were talking about interior design is the one that popped up that is a service based, but they all just seem to be positioned the exact same way, and that's the real estate business.
Oh yeah,
there's every town, no matter where you live. If you're listening to me, you know how competitive the real estate market is in your area. How many realtors, how many individuals are getting their license, or how many big real estate companies there are out there, and they're basically doing the exact same thing and showing a home, selling the home. There's ripe opportunity for brands in that market sector to take advantage of trying to get edge out from the pack, be a little distinctive, do something different, and not just plaster their team's faces in a full page magazine ad and call it a day. That's not brand.
And it's funny because even, real estate agents, it is a bit kind of like hairdressers, where it's all like relationship, where then most of the people get guilted into choosing their preferred agent because they feel guilted. Like, oh, my friend's now like a real estate agent, so I guess I have to use them.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. It's the guilt factor.
If you know someone who cuts hair, like, I guess I got to use this person. It is funny because it's like you have this, again, they're not authentic relationships on that side of it because there's no distinction. I can't create a relationship with something that is like just bland, It's like the same thing if you eat food that's bland, your brain can't place it. And that's usually because flavors are based off of the nutrients that's in the food, and like sweet stuff is higher in sugar, so your body goes, oh, I need more of this, and so it likes it, and it just likes it in general. But if something's bland, your body can't categorize it. There's no bucket to put bland in except for yuck, and so it's like it's having trouble. And so if your business is bland and just blends in with the category of what it is, it's like the consumer is going to have so much trouble, or your client, on going, no, this equals that. And again, going back to A24, is like you look at A24, go to their website and look at what they have, and the vibe of everything matches the lane that they've deliberately chosen as their experiences through the films that they do. And I think that's just a really good way to look at it. And it's the same thing of like, it's fun to look at service businesses as like, what's your theme? Like, what's your, not like shtick, but like what's your theme? Like, how are you going about business, and what makes you different? Because then that's going to help your experience actually be something, and not just be like, oh yeah, it's another, commoditized service of being a vendor. That's the same thing you get. You're replaceable. You're nothing.
Yeah. We're stressing the importance of relationship. Just like with all brands, whether you're a product or service brand, relationship is what is the foundation of your brand. It's about perception. It's about how expectations, value, but the relationship you have with your audience, the relationship you have with other businesses, and be mindful of that, right?
Yeah. And I would say, just like we said on last episode, is like, look for areas where you can do things you don't have to do. And that starts with not just following the rest of your industry or other
the herd
options. Yeah. It's like by acting different and being distinct, you are then doing something you don't have to do, but you're going to be able to thrive in your business.
Yeah. Again, we have a link for our form. If you have a suggestion, a topic you want us to hit on. And we also, again, for a lot of newer listeners, this whole thing started with a book that we wrote that has won some awards. It's available on Amazon. It is something that we get a lot of compliments on from a lot of people that say, hey, I read it and I'm going to go back and reread it, because there's always, every little sip and chapter has some nuggets that we always need to be reminded about. Whether you're a consumer and you're meandering the world of brand as a consumer, or whether you have a business and you're trying to build your brand. So until next time, cheers.